This is Slow the Flow. We're a charity, and the brief is we're here to educate the public in natural flood management, sustainable drainage systems, sometimes called SUDS, and other renewable methods of managing the environment. These are pictures from some of our volunteers. Anyone ever volunteered with Slow the Flow on a Sunday? No? Shame on you.
My son,
Yeah.
my 17-year-old son does.
Yeah. We have regular volunteers. It's great, you know, if you want to have a really good Sunday morning, you know, we did one this Sunday, and it's a really positive experience, and it's sweeps across the community. You know, we get children of all age. Alice was here, Paul's daughter, on Sunday. We had another little girl who was about 5-year-old from, I think, what school is she from? School somewhere in Hebden,
Castle Hills.
Castle Hill in Todmorden. So we have that full range of sort of the, and they don't just come from Hebden Bridge, they come from all over. And it's a great way, burning off a bit of energy on a Sunday morning and sort of meeting new people. So that, I think we've got somebody at the door. So that's basically what we do. So and then we have a picture of Bede. So I'm going to introduce Bede. He's one of our oldest trustees, and Bede and Stuart have been here from the beginning, so...
I'm not sure I like this. This is the oldest trustee. Longest serving.
Longest serving. Go on, Bede, I'll leave it to you for a minute.
My name's Bede Mullen. I'm chair of Slow the Flow. Great to see you all here this afternoon. Really, really nice, actually. And hopefully you're going to enjoy the talk and the materials that have been prepared for you. Just a bit about Slow the Flow. We've been in existence since 2016. We started following the 2015 Boxing Day floods that affected all of the Calder Valley, and a lot of the initial trustees who set up Slow the Flow met in the clean-up event after the 2015 floods. And basically we thought there's something we can do as members of the community, citizens living in Hebden Bridge and Todmorden and what have you. And we didn't want to wait for statutory authorities to come up with flood alleviation plans, because we knew they would take a long, long time to get approval, to get funding and what have you, and that's proved to be the case, as we've seen with Mythe and Roy. That took a long, long time to be completed. And the one in Hebden Bridge is, it's not, the design work hasn't actually been signed off on that yet. They've started some of the work, but it's still unsure about when the bulk of that work's going to take place. Now that's 2015, that's 7 years ago. So we've been out there basically doing work, building natural flood management into the environment ever since. We volunteer twice a month, first and the third Sunday of every month, and we've done that all the way through from 2016, except for COVID. We had to knock it on the head for a while then. And we've had thousands of volunteers come through. All ages, and as Andrew alluded to, it's great when we get kind of 3 generations of one family coming through, you know, grandparents, parents, and the children themselves. So what do? We work with landowners, principally large landowners. At the moment it's the National Trust, it's High-Castle Crags. In the new year we're hoping to work with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust on one of their sites in Cragvale, installing leaky dams. They're just using natural materials found in the woodland to interrupt the flow of water coming down from the tops to the bottoms. Simple as that. We build leaky dams, we use brash to stuff gullies. Where there are no clear channels coming down from the hillside, we use contour logs to place across the valley floor, all with the intention of slowing the flow of the water coming down into the main channel. And as a consequence of the work we've done, we've kind of changed the environment a bit. I mean, we're getting new fauna being established around the leaky dams. We're getting much more and much diverse invertebrates breeding behind the leaky dams themselves, because as well as slowing the flow of the water coming down the hillside, we're actually catching a lot of the sediment that would not naturally be washed away from the tops and into the river course itself. So it's great work going on there. We're very keen to work with schools, both secondary and primary schools. We've already offered and carried out a number of field trips with year 4 and 5 pupils, whole day in High-Castle Crags, looking at work we've done, getting them to do some work themselves, and looking at some of the educational materials we've got. And we'd like to offer that at some stage to all the primary schools in Calderdale. It'd be fantastic if we could do that. The other bit about the work we're doing, it's not just the practical volunteering work. We're really interested in the citizen science side of things. Part of what we've done over the last 6 years or so is to measure the effectiveness of our work. So we've got monitoring stations on particular streams coming down from the hills with, where we've instituted natural flood management, and other ones where we've not done anything at all, a controlled stream. So we can measure the difference between flow rates and whatever. Sorry, am I taking on
Yeah, go on, you carry on.
yeah. Well, yeah, these are, I can recognise those, I bet you can as well, Stuart. Crimsworth Dean. And that's the kind of work we do. It's absolutely fantastic. Kids love doing it. I mean, who wouldn't want to play in mud and water and what have you? And you can see the effect of the work we've done. Behind each of those little leaky dams there's a small pool. I mean, it might hold half a cubic metre each one of those. But if you go up there, that photograph always reminds me of Bingley Five Rise Locks, where you've got all the locks ascending there. And all that material was just on site. We haven't brought anything at all on site, so it's all natural and what have you. And we were able to monitor the effectiveness of this. And the kind of headline figure is that, you know, we've reduced the peak flow by about 90 minutes. Now, that's on a particular individual stream. You can't say that the whole of the catchment would have that effect. But if you did that kind of work across the catchment, you would have a significant impact. And that cost precisely nothing. You know, it cost volunteer time, no more than that. So if you compare that with some of the big engineering schemes that are going on, I mean, there's kind of no comparison there. We've had an MSc student working with us looking at flow rates. We've sponsored and given a bursary to that student. We're doing the same now with another 2 students. One's looking at water quality and one's looking at macroinvertebrates. And we were approached by Huddersfield University last week to say whether we'd be interested in a PhD for carbon capture and storage. So you can see that a lot of our work is grounded in science as well as volunteering, and that's why we'd really like to work with you in schools. Okay, I think I've stolen enough of Andrew's.
Yeah, you know, right. Thank you, FXB, for that. So, building on that, basically the idea was, how can we get this into schools? How can we make this a concept? Because sometimes it's quite technical, it's quite scientific, but how can we get it as a concept that we can work with schools? So that's where I was brought in. And what I've done is I've created some packs. Okay, you're all going to get, I brought you packs there. Each school's going to get 2 packs today. We decided to give 2 so you can use it in group work. It's all about the children being creative, and it's all about sort of the children sort of problem solving as well. So these resources include, first of all, lesson 1 is on rivers, and I'll get it out in a minute and I'll show you what comes in this pack. So lesson 1 is on rivers. So the first thing we have in this pack is that every school gets 2 of these. I'll fold it out, I'll try and make it as democratic as I can so you can all look at it. So you all have rivers, and I'm going to go through the lessons. Each lesson comes with its own PowerPoint. Katie kindly put it on the Solidifill website today, so you can download every PowerPoint that goes with every lesson. There are 4 lessons in all. The first one's rivers. Second one is on flooding and some of the causes of flooding, getting across the concepts. You don't have to be an expert. You know, I've made the PowerPoints to explain all these ideas. I'm also going to give you each. I'll give you one now actually. This is a pack you can all take home today. So this has got all the PowerPoints on it. So as I'm talking, if you want to follow me throughout these lessons, this will be a bit self-explanatory. So if you this is a copy of all the PowerPoints.
Thank you very much.
And the idea is I want to make this as sort of enjoyable for the children as well. It's not just about worksheets, it's about your pupils actually getting this as a physical resource, thinking about it, looking at how they can work with it. You know, there are no right or wrong answers in a way. They're actually experimenting themselves as they're going through the lessons. The next lesson, NFM, can we, quick quiz, does anyone know what NFM stands for? Yeah, well done, natural flood management. So the next lesson is natural flood management, and I'll go through the lesson sequences one by one, because what I want to do today is I don't want you to talk it, I want you to get an idea of what the resource is, get your packs, go away with it, get it out at home, have a look at it, and see how it can work for you as a school, see how we can work with you a bit more. And then finally, the last lesson is a kind of case study lesson. And I've made this the least prescriptive because I think by the time you get to lesson 4, you should really sort of have gone through the PowerPoint, you should have gone through the lessons, and the children should be thinking then about, you know, what this is all about, how can we sort of work with this, how can we be creative. You know, we'd love to get feedback about some of the sort of things your children come up with in schools and what they're working with on this. So I will go through each lesson as we go along. So lesson 1 is flooding, rivers, sorry. Right, so as I said, in each lesson pack you'll get a PowerPoint. So with each lesson pack you will get these. Lesson 1. It's little, I've tried to label and make as self-explanatory as you can. They're all there for the pupils. This is the centre of the lessons, this thing. So as you teach it, this comes out. So every lesson this comes out. So I'll get them out if you want to all take one and put them where you think they maybe go on there. I've made it a little bit easier. But and the children, this is for the children to do. This is for the children who've got the pack each, and they've got to think about this river. We did move it. This actual material's changed a few times. It started off as a board game. It was plastic. Go on, throw it then, yeah. See if you can get there.
Oh, somewhere around there.
That's perfect. Now, obviously, you know, it's not a very delicate or sort of detailed sort of image of a river, but it gives the children an idea of how it works. And you can teach your normal geography lesson on this. You will get also, you'll get each lesson plan will be there. There's 2 worksheets as well, and they're all in the pack. So everyone has a worksheet. So there's a worksheet on rivers, and there's a worksheet also on labelling the rivers and labelling the different features. And then there's a creative activity. So that's the first lesson, okay? So we're getting used to that model. The children are getting used to that model. And kids, you know, we have a big interactive model that we brought out on the roadshow this year, and children love that sort of physical aspect of it. It's not just giving them a worksheet about what a river is and what flooding is. They're playing with these things, they're putting them out, they're testing themselves, they try to remember it. So lesson 1 is all about that. You can extend that. I'll put some extensions on the back. I'll come on to them in the end. You can extend that by the pupils doing some research, you know, learning about what the river is that runs through Calderdale. It'd be surprising how many children probably don't even know the name of the river that runs through Calderdale and things like that. Maybe doing some extension activities on that. Then it leads to the next lesson, which is on flooding. Okay, same pattern. We have the PowerPoint here, what happens during precipitation, but then we have lesson 2. It gets a little bit more complicated. So if you want to get your slides there, there are information cards, and this is the fun bit. They start to get the little buildings out. Now you've all got these. These go on the model, so we've all got different things. So there's a bridge, you can put them wherever you want, or hand some of them out. And the children get to play with them. There's a bus, there is a farmhouse, there are shops, and they put them out on the model. These come as flat packs, so you're going to have to either make these with the children or make them yourselves, or if you've got a DT expert who's really good. So the children get to sort of think about that. There's local features as well, such as Studley Pike in there, so they can recognise that. There are roads, there are things like that. So the children get to think about things like that, and then they get for the next bit in lesson 2, they get the cards, and they're information cards. And it starts explaining, it runs with the PowerPoint, it explains to the children some of the information surrounding flooding. Again, that extension is there. What happens to precipitation? And it can take 1 lesson, it can take 2 lessons. You know, it's entirely up to you. I've given you this as this kind of guide for you. But the idea is the model comes out again. And let the children get the model out. Let the children see if they can remember. It's a kind of self-assessment there. You're assessing these children. Have they remembered where things go from last lesson? And what I liked about it was the idea it's a physical resource, you know, that you can keep using. You know, it comes out, the children have control of it. They go into their groups, they work with that. The bus is even based on a Halifax bus, so they might recognise that. I'm trying to keep it as authentic as I could, okay? So, everyone with me so far? Have you looked at lessons? These are lesson 2. They're the little cards. You can have a look at them if you want. Take 1 out each. They're the information cards you will get with lesson 2. and it tells you a little bit about some of the information, the definitions, some of the things we need to know about when heavy rain falls and things like that. Don't worry if you mess them up, because this is just my pack, so I can put them back again and it's fine. They're all packed up in here. There's worksheets in here as well that goes with everything. There's a bridge, there's Studley Pike as well. I forgot to get that out so that can go somewhere. Children can decide where Studley Pike is. That's entirely up to them. Sometimes people put it in the river, I don't know why, but flooding's getting worse. So there's also the lesson plans in here as well, so I'll let you have a look at them as well. You can pass some of them round. So that's lesson 2, it's based on flooding. As you can see, what we're doing is we're building up. We've not talked really about what the work Slow the Flow have done yet. We're just getting some of the curriculum out of the way. I've tried to follow the curriculum in that sense. We're trying to embed that before we get on to the next lesson, which is on NFM. So the next lesson is NFM. Again, starts with a PowerPoint. As the model of the river comes out with the keywords, the information cards, the buildings, and you also get information cards where the children have to then match. If they've watched the PowerPoint where it tells them what a rain garden is, what a leaky barrier is, what riparian and floodplain woodland is, and all these technical terms, which some of you might not understand. So what I've done kindly is I've given you a teacher's sheet. So you don't have to get into your lesson and think, oh my God, where's that title? I don't know the difference between a rain garden and this. Because it's quite stressful when you've got a group of kids and they know more than you, I understand that. So I've given you that. So each of you can have one of them. So look after that, because that tells you what goes with what. Okay, so that's lesson 3. Again, it comes with its own pack. It comes in its own little box. Has everyone got one? Yeah. And that tells you what goes with what. So you'll have a title. I'm just getting my glasses on.
Sorry, we just need
Can I have one?
Yeah, of course you can. Do you want one as well? Keep that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So lesson 3, these
Thank you.
information cards all come in here. We have the title there. So for instance, we have there cross slope, woodland and hedgerows. We have the picture there that goes with the title, and the children then have to match the definition. So we've got there a woodland which is planted across a hill slope. It intercepts the flow of water as it runs down the hill, reducing floodland runoff and encouraging infiltration and storage of water in the soil. But they're all there, the answers are all there in your information pack, in your teacher's pack that I've given you. And it's all in the PowerPoint as well. So the PowerPoint has to come first before the lessons unfold. So the children will understand. You'll be able to assess how much the children are listening to as well. And again, the idea is it's a physical resource. They're not just filling in a worksheet. There are worksheets that accompany it. So they have to. You can use this. You could either do this as an IT session, or you could do it as an art session. They have to draw the NFM methods in the grid. Make that bigger if you want. It can be A3, or they can do it. You know, I'm all for you doing extensions of this. So it's not. This is how to do it. This is just your model. I want you to take it away. Think about the kind of children you teach in the ability level. What could you do about it? Could they each take one each? Could one group of children take leaker barriers and do an information poster on it? There's all sorts of spin-offs. And then there is another part to this, which is these are to be cut out. These are also to be placed on the model. So there's things like soil and land management, some of the things that are in these cards, some of the cross-slope woodland, the riparian, they're also to be cut out somewhere in here. I don't know where I've put them. There's a worksheet. But it's things like that, and they're also to go on the map. So as each lesson rolls on, the map gets fuller and fuller. And as you bring the river model out, the idea is you step back a bit. You let the children, think about where things go. You let the children think about what happened with the house, where the bridge goes, where we're going to put where we're going to put this. We're going to put it on where the farmer lives. What we're going to put. We're going to put suds down where the shops are in the town centre. All that kind of things. Where are we going to put the woodland? Where's it going to be most effective? Where are the leaky barriers going to go? And it's about them problem solving. It's about them actually thinking about it. Not me standing at the front telling them this is a leaky barrier and this goes there. They're actually thinking about it. They're looking at that map. They're studying it. Look at the work Slow the Flow do as well. Maybe go online and look at that. Look at some of the things. Go back and maybe do some project work on the flood, the Boxing Day floods, and think about what went wrong, and then they can refer back to the river model. Is everyone with me so far? Yeah. So the river model is at the centre of this. You know, this is the idea I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be almost a bit Montessori-ish in a way, where the children are actually solving these problems themselves, where it's not just about printing a few worksheets off Twinkle, but it's about getting that model out and getting the children to think about it. And so the sort of logical last lesson is I've kind of stepped back a bit. It's when you think about case studies now, and you think about people, these are human stories, okay? So you've got the children to understand the technical sides, you've taught children what a leaky barrier is, you've taught children about things like cross-slope hedging, they're familiar with middle course, upper course, lower course, they're familiar with ways of slowing the flow, hopefully, through the PowerPoints, through some of the films. There's also films embedded in these PowerPoints, so there are links to YouTube to some of the films of Slow the Flow. People like Bede and Stewart will be on there talking about what they've done in the Crags and some of the work they've done, which will introduce them, and it's grounding them in that local area. And then we've got the last bit, which is it's almost like a project for the children then, you know, there's no lesson plan with that, and I did that deliberately because I wanted to there's a PowerPoint and there's the case studies, but I want the children to go away with that. And I thought I could have given you some pen portraits. I thought I could have interviewed some people and given you, you know, a list of an interview with somebody who'd been affected by flooding. But I thought it'd be more interesting if the children did that themselves in a way. So the last study is a case study. They're placed in groups and they're given these individual pen portraits. These are just some examples. If you can think of anyone else you want, choose someone, make somebody up. You know, I'm not precious about any of these, so I just picked forest warden, farmer, a baker who doubles up as a flood warden because they can multitask, and a local family. And these are all people who were somehow affected by this flood or by these flood events. So I'll put my glasses in. Mr. Henderson, this is the farmer, has farmed on the uplands above the town for the last 40 years, and in recent years he's noticed the flooding has become more of a problem, especially in his lower lying fields. What natural flood management methods could Mr. Henderson use to help the flooding on his land? So that's where the pupils then go away and do some research, get together in a group, think about Mr. Henderson or Mrs. Henderson or whoever else, Mr. Joe Hall who runs the bakers down in the village, or somebody, or the local family whose house has been flooded twice, and they think about all the impacts of flooding. And the idea is that it's the human geography there, it's to try and make it more real, it's trying to make these cases come to life. They could do some research on families who have been affected by flooding, you know, maybe go online and do a project there. And that's the sort of logical last lesson. And that is basically it in a nutshell. There are 4 lessons, it's fairly self-contained. Hopefully, you know, the PowerPoints will help you, hopefully the teacher's sheets will help you, explaining how it runs, what comes logically and what. The PowerPoint, as I say, is always at the beginning and it always explains the lesson. So before the sort of learning begins, you use the PowerPoint. It might be a good idea to look at it first, just get grips with it, get the model out when you get home tonight, lay it out and play with it, you know, put things around and think, test yourself, do I know where this goes, do I understand what this concept is and stuff like that. Because some of it can be quite technical, but it's also about pushing them kids as well, you know, there's no reason why they can't get some of these ideas. And they'll surprise you, you know, they'll come up with solutions. And I want them to come up with solutions. It's not about a teacher standing at the front and telling them this is what flooding is, this is how we deal with it. It's about them thinking about how we can deal with it. It's about them thinking about all the people it affects and the ways it could affect them. And so there are then extensions to that. This is where you can kind of move on and you can extend it yourself. And I've put ideas at the back. You're welcome to take some photos. Think about, you know, how many children know about the sort of local flora and fauna that we have here. You know, Katie was on about kingfishers earlier. You said you went for a walk with your pupils and you saw some kingfishers in the valley. Think about, you know, if we improve our local environment, you know, Bede talked about citizen science, you know, the idea that getting children rooted to their own immediate landscape, their own locality, to think about the crags and places like that, places they can visit, the impact of looking after our rivers. And there's so much that could come off that, so many extension ideas, looking at the water cycle, looking at rain gardens. How can we improve, you know, the way our school deals with water? You know, how can we slow some of the flow down as individuals? Can they go back and have a word with their parents? You know, can they do a project on their own houses? You know, looking at SUDS and things like that. Can they do things like that about how they can individually make a difference? You know, how they individually use water, how their parents use water, how the school wastes water. You know, where can we put water butts? Where can we put rain gardens? All them kind of things. So it's hopefully it explains itself, the resource. The idea is you take this away. We would love to hear back from you. We'd love to come in and work in schools with you as well. We'd love to see you coming up to the Crags. You know, as I say, thanks for coming. I wrote to about 50 primary schools or something like that. You were the ones that came, so you're almost the pilot studying this. Let me know if there's anything that doesn't work. You know, let me know if there's anything that you think was a bit